I should have known something was wrong when my son Jake invited me to Thanksgiving dinner after 2 years of silence. But it wasn't until my phone lit up with an urgent warning, "Get up, leave now. The food is poisoned," that I understood the horrifying truth. My own flesh and blood hadn't invited me to reconcile. They'd invited me to die. Not quickly, but slowly, turning me into a living shell so they could steal my restaurant empire while I was still breathing but no longer thinking. That anonymous message saved my life, but it couldn't save me from learning that sometimes your worst enemies share your DNA and sit at your dinner table, smiling while they plan your destruction. Before unlocking the next one, drop down a quote of encouragement for Dad. I'll pick the best one to pin. The silence in my Dallas home had become my only companion since Dorothy passed 2 years ago. I sat in the leather armchair where she used to read her Southern cookbooks, counting the hours until bedtime when sleep might offer escape from the emptiness that filled every corner of our modest house. The November wind rattled the windows, and I found myself staring at her ceramic rooster collection, still arranged exactly as she'd left it. Everything remained untouched, as if moving a single item might somehow erase the 43 years we'd shared together. The phone rang at 6:15, cutting through the evening quiet like a blade. I stared at the old rotary phone, its shrill cry unfamiliar after so many silent evenings. Who would be calling at this hour? I lifted the heavy receiver with weathered hands. Thomas Harper speaking. "Dad." The voice hit me like a physical blow. "Jake, my son who hadn't spoken to me in 2 years. "Jake?" My voice cracked despite my efforts to sound steady. "I wasn't expecting." "I know, Dad, I know it's been too long." His tone carried something I couldn't identify. Nervousness, maybe guilt. Way too long. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I could hear him breathing, could almost picture him in whatever expensive office he probably occupied now. My successful son with his technology business and picture-perfect wife, living a life I barely understood. "How are you, son?" "We're good. Lisa and I are doing well." He paused, and I heard something shuffle in the background. "Dad, I'm calling because Thanksgiving is tomorrow, and we want you to come. We want you here with us." Thanksgiving? Dorothy's favorite holiday. She'd spend days preparing, humming old hymns while rolling out pie crusts with surgical precision. The house would smell like heaven, cinnamon and sage, brown butter and roasted garlic. "Thanksgiving," I repeated, tasting the word like medicine. "I know it won't be the same without Mom. But Dad, we need to try. Lisa's been asking about you. We both have." Lisa, my daughter-in-law with her perfect smile and lifestyle blog that documented every curated moment of their life. I'd always felt like she was performing whenever I was around, as if I were an audience rather than family. Where would this be? Our place. We moved, got a bigger house in Montclair. You'll love it. His voice gained confidence. Lisa's planning to make Mom's cranberry sauce recipe, the one with the orange zest. My chest tightened. Dorothy's cranberry sauce. She'd guard that recipe like a state secret, measuring ingredients with the care of a chemist. "You remember the recipe?" "Lisa found it in Mom's old recipe box, the one you gave us after." His voice trailed off. "After the funeral." Something in Jake's voice didn't sound right. There was an eagerness that felt forced, like a salesman trying too hard to close a deal. But maybe I was being unfair. Maybe this was just nervousness. "What time?" 4 o'clock. "We'll have drinks first, catch up properly. Dad, I know things have been difficult between us. But family is family, right? Mom always said that. Family is family." Dorothy had said that when she was trying to smooth over whatever disappointment Jake had caused, she believed in forgiveness, in second chances. "All right," I said, surprising myself. "I'll be there." "Really?" The relief in his voice was palpable. "That's wonderful, Dad. Lisa will be so excited. I'll text you the address." But something in Jake's voice didn't sound right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would bring more than just turkey and gratitude. After hanging up, I stared at Dorothy's photograph on the mantel. 2 years of silence, and now Jake suddenly wanted me at his table. The father in me wanted to believe this was genuine reconciliation. "What would you do, sweetheart?" I whispered to her smiling face. Dorothy had always been the bridge between Jake and me. When he crashed her car at 16 or dropped out of college, she'd find ways to guide him back without judgment. She saw the best in people, sometimes to a fault. Thanksgiving had been her favorite holiday. She'd wake at 5 in the morning, transforming the kitchen into her command center. Every burner occupied, every counter covered with ingredients arranged like a symphony. She'd hum gospel songs while preparing stuffing, her movements graceful and purposeful. I could still see her at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, tasting gravy with decades of intuition. Jake would hover nearby, stealing turkey skin, and she'd pretend not to notice while cutting him extra pieces. The secret is cooking with gratitude, she'd tell him every year. Food tastes different when you're thankful. Our last Thanksgiving together was 3 years ago. Dorothy was already sick, though we didn't know how sick. She'd been quieter, more thoughtful, as if memorizing every moment. Jake had brought Lisa, newly engaged. Dorothy spent the meal asking about wedding plans while Lisa took polite notes on her phone, occasionally rolling her eyes when she thought no one was looking. Now Jake wanted Lisa to make Dorothy's cranberry sauce. The thought both warmed and worried me. Could someone who'd never understood the love behind the recipe truly honor its meaning? I looked around the living room at Dorothy's hand-sewn pillows, at her romance novels beside my business journals. Tomorrow, I'd leave this sanctuary of memories and step back into the world of the living. Maybe Dorothy would want me to try, even if Jake's motivations weren't entirely pure. She'd always believed in second chances. I stood slowly, joints protesting. Tomorrow would come whether I was ready or not, and I owed it to Dorothy's memory to rebuild what we'd lost. But deep in my chest, a small voice whispered that something wasn't right about Jake's sudden invitation. 40 years of running a business had taught me to trust my instincts. And right now, those instincts were telling me to be careful. The next morning arrived gray and cold, typical November weather in Dallas. I'd slept poorly, waking several times with fragments of dreams I couldn't quite remember. Something about Dorothy calling my name from another room, her voice urgent but distant. I stood before my closet, surveying clothes I rarely wore anymore. Most days, I lived in comfortable slacks and old sweaters, the uniform of a man who'd stopped trying to impress anyone. But today felt different. Today required armor. My hand settled on the navy suit Dorothy had insisted I buy for Jake's college graduation. "You need something nice for important occasions," she'd said, smoothing the lapels with those careful hands that could fix anything from a torn seam to a broken heart. I'd worn it twice since then, once to her funeral, once to a business meeting I couldn't avoid. The fabric still smelled faintly of her perfume, a ghost of gardenia that made my chest tighten. In the bathroom mirror, I confronted a man I barely recognized. When had my hair turned completely silver? When had these lines carved themselves so deeply around my eyes? Dorothy used to trace those lines with her fingertip, calling them laugh lines even when I knew some came from worry. I shaved carefully, as if looking younger might bridge the years between Jake and me, as if presenting the best version of myself might somehow make this reunion genuine instead of whatever it actually was. Before leaving, I opened my nightstand drawer. Inside lay the pocket watch Dorothy had given me on our wedding day, its brass surface worn smooth from decades of my thumb brushing across it. "So you'll never lose time with me," she'd teased, not knowing that time would eventually take her from me instead. I wound it once, hearing the tiny gears click to life, and slipped it into my vest pocket. Some part of me believed she'd walk beside me today. The drive to Montclair took 40 minutes through increasingly affluent neighborhoods. Modest Dallas homes gave way to manicured lawns and sprawling estates. This was a world where hedge clippers hummed every Saturday, and fountains danced for nobody but their owners. I'd looked up the address on my old computer that morning, surprised by what the real estate websites revealed. The house Jake now called home was worth more than I'd made in my first 10 years of business. How had a tech company's salary afforded this? Even with Lisa's income from whatever it was she did online, the numbers didn't add up. The GPS led me down tree-lined streets where every mailbox looked like it cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Children's bicycles left on perfect lawns were probably worth more than my car. This wasn't just wealth, this was a different universe entirely. When I finally pulled into the circular driveway, my old pickup truck looked embarrassingly out of place among the luxury cars parked nearby. The house loomed before me, all stone columns and gleaming windows, like something from a magazine Dorothy used to flip through at the dentist's office. I sat for a moment, engine ticking as it cooled, Dorothy's pocket watch steady against my chest. This wasn't the modest family gathering I'd imagined. This was something else entirely. Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the bottle of aged bourbon I'd brought, a rare 25-year single barrel I'd been saving for a truly special occasion. Even this premium bottle now seemed modest compared to the luxury surrounding me, and I walked toward the front door. Whatever was waiting for me inside, I was about to find out. The front door opened before I could knock. Jake stood there in an expensive suit, hair perfectly styled, smile too bright. He looked thinner than I remembered, tension hiding beneath his polished appearance. "Dad!" He pulled me into a hug that lasted a beat too long. "You look great, really great." "You too, son. This place is incredible." "Thanks. We've been working on it for months." His laugh echoed in the vast marble foyer. "Come in. Lisa's excited to see you." The interior stunned me. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks, light dancing across marble floors that probably cost more than my house. Oil paintings in gilded frames lined the walls. Real paintings, with visible brushstrokes and museum lighting. "Jake, how did you afford all this?" His smile flickered. "Business has been good, Dad. Really good. Caught the market at the right time." The words came too quickly, rehearsed. "Lisa helped too. Her brand is taking off." Lisa appeared at the top of a curved staircase, descending like she was making an entrance. Silk dress, diamonds at her throat and wrists. Everything screamed money, generational wealth, not a few years of good business. "Edward!" She kissed my cheek. Expensive perfume overwhelming. "Finally! We're so happy you're here." I handed Jake the wine bottle, watching his face as he studied the label. For a second I caught something, calculation, as if mentally comparing its value to everything around us. "Dad, this is fantastic," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Lisa linked her arm through mine. "Come, let me show you around." She led me through rooms that felt like museum displays. The living room featured furniture that looked unused, arranged around a fireplace large enough to roast a pig. The dining room table could seat 20, set with china worth more per plate than most weekly salaries. "It's beautiful," I said, though beautiful felt wrong. Impressive, expensive, intimidating, but not beautiful. No warmth, no personal touches, speaking of life lived rather than life displayed. "The kitchen's my favorite," Lisa said, guiding me toward restaurant-grade appliances. "I've been practicing your wife's cranberry sauce recipe. I want it to be perfect." Dorothy's recipe in this sterile showcase felt almost sacrilegious. Jake appeared beside us, his hand on my shoulder feeling like ownership rather than affection. We thought we'd have drinks first, catch up properly. So much to talk about. I nodded, though my mind raced. The numbers didn't add up. Even successful tech entrepreneurs didn't live like this unless they were running companies worth hundreds of millions. Jake had never mentioned anything that's successful before our silence began. A marble counter caught my eye. Probably worth more than most people's cars. Fresh flowers arranged perfectly, not a single petal out of place. This wasn't a home, it was a stage set. Where had this money really come from? And why did Jake's explanations feel like lies wrapped in expensive paper? "Let's get you comfortable," Lisa said, guiding me into a living room that felt more like a showroom than a home. Every cushion was perfectly fluffed, every surface gleaming. Jake followed closely, his movements oddly stiff, like an actor rehearsing for a role. They positioned me in a leather armchair that probably cost more than all the seating in my best restaurant combined. Chairs I'd carefully selected for customer comfort over decades of business. The space felt intentionally formal, as if we were conducting business rather than having a family reunion. "So, Dad," Jake began, his voice carrying a forced enthusiasm, "tell us how you've been. Really, we want to know everything." Everything. What could I say? That I spent my days managing the restaurants, talking to Dorothy's photograph when the silence became unbearable? "I'm managing," I replied. "The restaurants keep me busy, and the house needs occasional repairs." Lisa leaned in, her tone laced with feigned concern. "You shouldn't be doing repairs at your age, Edward. What if you fall? What if something happens and no one's there to help?" Her words felt like tiny knives, tapping into fears I tried to ignore. There was something calculated about her concern, as if she had studied how to sound caring without actually caring. "I'm not helpless yet," I said, perhaps sharper than necessary. Jake quickly jumped in. "Of course not. Lisa just worries." "We both do." He exchanged a glance with her that lingered too long. "That's actually something we wanted to discuss with you. Your future. Making sure you're taken care of." Before I could respond, a woman entered the room. She appeared to be in her 50s, wearing a simple black dress. and her demeanor was professional yet warm. When her eyes met mine, I sensed a flicker of empathy that caught me off guard. "This is Maria," Lisa introduced, not bothering to look at her. "She helps with the house. Maria, this is Jake's father, Mr. Harper." "Pleased to meet you, sir," Maria said, her accent soft, yet her gaze sharp. She carried a silver tray with crystal glasses and what looked like expensive whiskey. As she set it down, her movements were careful and deliberate. "Maria's been with us for about 6 months," Jake said. "We don't know what we'd do without her." Maria's smile was polite, but didn't reach her eyes. She struck me as someone who wasn't easily impressed by wealth or intimidated by luxury. She'd seen it all before. "Will there be anything else?" she asked Lisa. "That's all for now. We'll call if we need you." Maria nodded and turned to leave, but as she passed my chair, she paused for a moment. Her eyes met mine again, and I was certain I saw something there, a warning maybe, or recognition of a kindred spirit in this house of beautiful facades. "Lovely woman," Lisa remarked after Maria disappeared toward the kitchen, her tone suggesting Maria was furniture rather than a person. "Very efficient. Knows her place." That phrase, "knows her place," made my skin crawl. Dorothy had cleaned houses when we were first married, working for wealthy families who treated her exactly like Lisa had just treated Maria. Jake raised his glass. "To family! To new beginnings!" I lifted my bourbon, but something made me hesitate. Maybe it was Maria's warning glance, maybe my own growing unease, but the amber liquid suddenly looked less like celebration and more like obligation. "To family," I echoed, though the word felt hollow in this pristine mausoleum they called home. Something was wrong here. I could feel it in the forced smiles, the rehearsed conversations, the way Maria's eyes had tried to tell me something important. I just wasn't sure what yet. As we sipped our drinks, the conversation felt increasingly hollow. Jake talked about his tech ventures with rehearsed enthusiasm, while Lisa smiled at all the right moments. But I found myself watching for Maria's return. She appeared 20 minutes later with appetizers that looked restaurant quality. As she set them down, her movements were precise, professional. When she straightened, her eyes found mine again. "Mr. Harper," she said quietly, "would you prefer sparkling or still water with dinner?" An innocent question, but something in her tone made me look closer. Her expression was neutral, yet there was urgency in her eyes. "Still water, thank you." She nodded and moved toward the kitchen, but not before glancing at my untouched bourbon with what looked like approval. "Maria's so attentive," Lisa said, smile not reaching her eyes. "She anticipates our needs." "Where did you find her?" I asked. Jake and Lisa exchanged another quick glance. "Through an agency," Jake said. "They specialize in experienced household staff." The pause before experienced felt loaded with meaning. The doorbell rang, cutting through building tension. Lisa's face brightened with apparent relief. "That must be Marcus," she said, rising. "I'll get it." "Marcus?" I asked Jake. "Marcus Thompson, our family attorney. His father used to work with you, real estate deals back in the day." Jake's explanation came quickly, prepared. "Thompson." The name rang a bell. "Bill Thompson. We'd partnered on my second restaurant expansion in the 90s. Good man. He'd passed away a few years back." Lisa returned with a man in his mid-30s, charcoal suit, carrying a well-used leather briefcase that spoke of serious business. "Mr. Harper," he said, firm handshake. "Marcus Thompson. Honor to meet you. My father spoke of you often, said you were one of the most honest businessmen he knew." Now I remembered. Bill Thompson. Fair dealer, good partner. "Your father was a good man," I said sincerely. "Sorry about his passing." Marcus's smile seemed genuine, but I noticed discomfort when he glanced at Jake and Lisa. Subtle, easy to miss. "Marcus has been helping us with planning," Jake said, hand resting on Marcus's shoulder in a gesture that looked friendly but felt possessive. "Estate planning, business succession." Marcus nodded, shifting his briefcase nervously, a gesture that didn't match his professional demeanor. "Nothing urgent," Marcus added quickly. "Just prudent planning for the future." The word future hung heavy. Between Maria's warning glances and Marcus's obvious discomfort, I felt like an actor who'd walked onto stage without knowing his lines. Maria reappeared in the doorway, ostensibly checking if we needed anything. But her eyes met mine with unmistakable intensity, and she gave the slightest shake of her head, so subtle I almost missed it. Whatever script Jake and Lisa were following, not everyone was comfortable with their role, and Maria was trying to tell me something important. I just had to figure out what. Marcus set his briefcase on the marble coffee table with obvious reluctance. The leather made a soft thud, and I noticed his jaw tighten. "How long have you been practicing law, Marcus?" I asked. "About 8 years. Mostly family law, estate planning." His voice was steady, but his eyes avoided mine. Dad always said it was important work, helping families protect what they've built. The way he emphasized protect felt deliberate. Jake moved closer, that possessive hand finding Marcus's shoulder. "Marcus has been invaluable helping us think through complex financial arrangements. Haven't you, Marcus?" Marcus nodded, glancing at his briefcase with distaste. "Mr. Harper, what we're discussing today is purely preliminary. Nothing binding, nothing that can't be reconsidered." His emphasis on the last word was intentional. "What exactly are we discussing?" I asked directly. Lisa jumped in before Marcus could answer. "Just paperwork to streamline things, Edward. You know how complicated business gets as we age." Marcus drafted documents to make everything simpler. Marcus opened his briefcase with unsteady hands, revealing neat stacks of legal documents. Instead of lawyer confidence, he looked like a man handling something distasteful. "These are just drafts," he said quickly, apologetically. "Preliminary documents for discussion only." Jake's smile was too bright. "Dad, you've worked so hard. Built something amazing with those restaurants. But running business at your age, it's stressful. Lots of responsibility." "I manage fine," I said sharply. "Of course," Lisa soothed. "But what if something happened? What if you got sick? Who would run the restaurants? Make financial decisions?" Marcus studied his hands, clearly uncomfortable. When he looked up, his eyes met mine with what looked like an apology. "Mr. Harper," he said carefully, "any documents we discuss are completely voluntary. No one can force you to sign anything you don't want to sign. Ever." The emphasis on ever sent chills down my spine. Jake's laugh sounded forced. "Of course not. Dad, no one's forcing anything. We're just planning ahead, being responsible." Maria appeared carrying a small silver bell. "Dinner will be ready in 15 minutes. Her eyes found mine immediately. Another barely perceptible head shake. "Wonderful," Lisa clapped. "Marcus, leave those documents here. We can look at them after dinner, when we're relaxed." Marcus hesitated, hand hovering over the briefcase. "Actually, I think Mr. Harper should review these with his own attorney first. These are significant documents deserving careful consideration." The room's temperature seemed to drop. Jake's smile strained. Lisa's eyes flashed with anger. "That's thoughtful, Marcus," Jake said slowly. "But Dad trusts us. We're family." I looked around, Jake's forced smile, Lisa's calculating eyes, Marcus's distress, Maria hovering protectively. Everyone except Jake and Lisa seemed to know something was wrong. "Maybe Marcus is right," I said quietly. "Important documents deserve careful consideration." The silence that followed was deafening. The dining room felt like a stage set. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over a mahogany table set with delicate china. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Lisa seated me at the head of the table, a position that should have felt honoring but instead felt like being put on display. Jake sat to my right, Marcus to my left, Lisa at the opposite end like a queen holding court. Maria entered carrying the first course, soup that probably cost more per bowl than most people's entire dinner. As she set mine down, her hand brushed my shoulder briefly, deliberately, reassuringly. "This looks incredible, Lisa," I said, trying to inject warmth into the cold atmosphere. "Thank you, Edward. I've been taking cooking classes to honor Dorothy's memory by learning her recipes properly." Dorothy's name in this sterile showcase felt wrong, sacrilegious. Dorothy had cooked with love, not performance. "Mom would have appreciated that," Jake said without conviction. "She always said cooking was about bringing people together." Speaking of bringing people together, Lisa's transition felt rehearsed. "We should discuss Thanksgiving traditions going forward. Now that you're getting older, it might be easier if you joined us here every year instead of hosting." The presumption hit me like a slap. I haven't decided to stop hosting anything. Jake leaned forward, smile strained. "Dad, your house is getting harder to maintain. All those stairs, that old kitchen. What if something happened while you were cooking?" "I've been cooking longer than you've been alive, son." Marcus cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should enjoy this wonderful meal before discussing future plans." Lisa's eyes flashed with irritation, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, plenty of time to talk later." The conversation felt forced, artificial. Jake talked about business ventures with vague explanations full of meaningless buzzwords. Lisa chimed in about her lifestyle brand, but her answers to specific questions were evasive. The digital space is so dynamic, she said with practiced enthusiasm. You have to be flexible, ready to pivot when opportunities arise. I'd been in business 40 years. I knew the difference between legitimate success and smoke and mirrors. Nothing explained this level of wealth. Maria appeared, clearing soup bowls with quiet efficiency. As she reached for mine, she leaned closer. "The cranberry sauce is ready," she said softly. "I made it exactly like Mrs. Dorothy's recipe." Something in her tone made me look up sharply. Her eyes met mine, and I saw fear. Real, unmistakable fear. "Wonderful," Lisa said brightly, not noticing Maria's distress. "That's the most important part of the meal, isn't it, Edward? Dorothy's special cranberry sauce." The way she said special sent chills down my spine. Maria's hands trembled as she gathered remaining bowls. "I'll bring it out with the main course," Maria said, voice carefully controlled. Jake raised his wine glass. "To family traditions. To keeping Mom's memory alive." I lifted my glass automatically, but something felt wrong. The toast, the timing, Lisa watching with calculating eyes. Even Marcus looked uncomfortable. "To Dorothy," I said instead, seeing annoyance flicker across Lisa's face. The main course arrived, turkey and traditional fixings, beautifully presented. But when Maria set the cranberry sauce before me, her hands were visibly shaking. "Are you all right, Maria?" I asked with genuine concern. "Fine, sir. Just tired." But her eyes were pleading, trying to communicate something urgent. Lisa's voice cut like a knife. "Maria, that will be all. We'll serve ourselves." Maria hesitated, looking like she wanted to say more. Instead, she nodded and retreated, giving me one last, desperate look. Something was very wrong here. And whatever it was about to happen. As the main course was served, the atmosphere shifted. The turkey looked golden and succulent, the side dishes artfully arranged, but all I could focus on was the cranberry sauce sitting in front of me. Maria returned, her demeanor still tense, and set down the sauce with a slight tremor in her hands. "I made it just like Mrs. Dorothy's recipe," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Maria," I replied, trying to reassure her despite my own unease. But as I glanced at the crimson sauce, a sense of dread washed over me. Something felt wrong. Jake raised his glass. "Here's to family traditions," he announced, his voice too bright. Lisa echoed him, her smile wide but hollow. "And to new beginnings," she added, glancing at me as if expecting me to join in. I lifted my glass, but the weight of the moment felt heavy. There was an urgency in Maria's eyes that I couldn't shake. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I discreetly pulled it out, heart racing. The screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Get up. Leave now. The cranberry sauce is not safe." Panic surged through me. The room around me faded into a blur as I read the words again, my mind racing. Who was sending these messages? And how did they know? I looked up at Jake, who was laughing at something Lisa had said, his eyes sparkling with a false confidence. Lisa leaned in, pouring more wine into my glass, her smile too wide, too eager. "Edward, you haven't even touched your drink," she said, her tone sweet but with an edge. "You should have a sip. It'll help you relax." The very thought of drinking sent my heart racing. I forced a smile, setting the glass aside. I'm pacing myself. "Lisa, I want to savor it." The tension in the room thickened. Jake's laughter faltered, and he leaned forward, studying me. "Everything okay, Dad? You look a bit pale." I forced a chuckle, trying to mask my fear. "Just the rich food, not used to it anymore." Maria cleared her throat, her eyes darting between me and the table. "Dinner is ready," she said, stepping away as if sensing the rising tension. "Let's dig in," Jake declared, but I hesitated, my mind racing. The message loomed in my thoughts, merging with the vision of the cranberry sauce. "Excuse me," I muttered, rising from the table. "I need to. Just a moment." Jake chuckled politely, but his eyes were sharp, observing my every move. Claire's hand lingered on my forearm longer than necessary, her smile faltering. In the hallway, the noise of silverware faded into a muffled hum. I leaned against the cool wall, my breath unsteady. Who was behind this message? How did they know I was here? The chandelier above me buzzed faintly, each flicker of light like a warning. My heart raced as I approached the kitchen. Maria was there, washing dishes, her back turned. I took a deep breath, ready to ask her about the warning, but just then the sound of laughter drifted from the dining room. I needed to act quickly. I glanced back at the table, where the cranberry sauce sat ominously. If the message was true, and the sauce was poisoned, I had to get out of here. But how could I leave without alerting Jake and Lisa? I felt the pocket watch in my vest, the steady ticking reminding me of time running out. I had to make a choice. Trust the warning, or confront my family. As I turned back toward the dining room, I steeled myself. I had to find a way to protect myself, to uncover the truth, and to ensure that family ties didn't become a noose around my neck. I made my way toward the kitchen, heart pounding with each step. Behind me, I could hear Jake's voice rising in animated conversation, probably trying to cover for my absence. I needed answers, and Maria was the only person in this house who seemed genuinely concerned for my welfare. The kitchen was a masterpiece of stainless steel and granite, more like a restaurant than a home kitchen. Maria stood at the large sink, her back to me, scrubbing dishes with mechanical precision. Her shoulders were rigid with tension I could feel from across the room. "Maria," I said softly, not wanting to startle her. She spun around quickly, her eyes wide with alarm that immediately softened into relief when she saw it was me. "Mr. Harper," she whispered, glancing nervously toward the dining room. "You should not be here." "I need to talk to you," I said, stepping closer and lowering my voice. "That message about the cranberry sauce, was that from you?" For a moment, she looked like she might deny it. Her eyes darted toward the doorway, then back to my face. I could see the internal struggle playing out, fear warring with something that looked like desperate relief. "How did you get my phone number?" I asked gently, trying to make it easier for her to answer. "Mr. Jake," she whispered, barely audible. "He gave it to me when I started working here. He said to call if there was ever an emergency with the house when they were away." She paused, her voice trembling. "I never thought I would use it for something like this. But you did use it. You sent me that warning." I kept my voice calm, encouraging. "Why?" Maria's hands were shaking now as she gripped the edge of the sink. "Because you are in danger, Mr. Harper. Real danger." "What kind of danger?" She glanced toward the dining room again, and I could hear the fear in her breathing. "I used to work for Mrs. Dorothy," she said suddenly, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Before she passed away, I helped her with cleaning and cooking sometimes. She always spoke of you with such love, said you were the kindest, most gentle man she ever knew." The mention of Dorothy hit me like a physical blow. "You knew my wife?" "Yes, sir. She made me promise to look after you if anything ever happened to her. When Mr. Jake hired me here 6 months ago, I thought." Her voice broke slightly. "I thought it was to help take care of you. But then I heard their plan." "What plan?" Maria's eyes filled with tears, and she looked around the kitchen as if the walls themselves might be listening. "They are not who you think they are, Mr. Harper. This dinner, this invitation, it is not about family. It is about something else entirely." The sound of footsteps in the hallway made us both freeze. Maria's face went white with panic. "You must go back," she whispered urgently, "before they come looking. But please, Mr. Harper, be very careful. Do not eat or drink anything they give you. Nothing." "Maria, what aren't you telling me?" "Not here," she whispered, turning back to the sink as the footsteps grew closer. "Too dangerous. But you must trust me. Your life depends on it." Lisa's voice echoed from the hallway. "Edward, is everything all right? We're waiting for you." I had to go back, but every instinct told me to stay and get the whole truth from Maria. Whatever was happening in this house, she was the key to understanding it. "Later," I whispered to her back. "We'll talk later." She nodded without turning around, her hands resuming their mechanical scrubbing. As I walked back toward the dining room, my mind raced with questions. Dorothy had sent me a guardian angel, but what exactly was Maria trying to protect me from? I returned to the dining room with a forced smile, my mind spinning. Jake looked up, waiting. "Everything okay, Dad? You were gone a while. Just needed some air. You know how heavy the food is." Lisa's smile was perfectly rehearsed. "Well, then, you must try the cranberry sauce I made, Dorothy's recipe." The crimson sauce sat there like a threat. I lifted my spoon, pretending to consider, then set it down. In a moment, still working on the turkey. 20 minutes later, I excused myself again. "Just need to wash my hands." This time Maria was waiting in the kitchen, her face pale but determined. She motioned me into the far corner, away from the dining room. "Mr. Harper," she whispered, "I must tell you everything now. There may not be another chance. Tell me." "The cranberry sauce, they put something in it. Not just a sedative." Her voice trembled. "I overheard Mr. Jake and Mrs. Lisa talking yesterday. They thought the house was empty, but I was cleaning nearby." My stomach clenched. "What did they say?" Maria gripped her hands tightly. "Mr. Jake asked, 'Are you sure this won't kill him?' And Mrs. Lisa answered, 'No, it will only cloud his mind. He'll still be alive, but confused, helpless. Then all you have to do is hand him the papers, and he'll sign everything.'" My breath caught in my throat. Maria went on. "Then Mr. Jake laughed and said, 'Once Dad isn't thinking straight, everything will be ours.'" But Mrs. Lisa whispered, "Yes, ours for a while. Once I control it all, I'll sell everything. We'll be rich faster than any other way." "Mr. Harper," Maria's voice became urgent, "they plan to give you the poison tonight, then have you sign papers while you are not thinking clearly. Tomorrow, when you are confused and sick, they will say you had a stroke. No one will question why you cannot make decisions anymore." The calculated cruelty took my breath away. They had thought of everything: how to destroy me, how to cover it up, how to make it look natural. "But there is something else," Maria said, voice dropping lower. "Something about Mrs. Lisa that you need to know. She is not who she pretends to be. She has been lying to Mr. Jake too." Before she could continue, Jake's voice called from the dining room. "Dad? Where did you disappear to now?" Maria's eyes went wide with fear. "Go back. Act normal. But do not eat that cranberry sauce. And Mr. Jeskender, Harper, do not sign anything tonight, no matter what they say." As I walked back to face my would-be destroyers, one thought echoed. My own son was willing to turn me into a living corpse for money. But what other secrets was Lisa hiding? I sat through the rest of dinner like an actor in a nightmare, making small talk while my mind reeled. Every time Lisa smiled, every time Jake laughed, I felt sick knowing their plans. Finally, I excused myself again. "I need some fresh air." That was quite a meal. "Of course, Dad," Jake said, though I caught irritation in his eyes. I slipped back to the kitchen where Maria was loading the dishwasher. She looked up, face tense with urgency. "You said there was something else about Lisa," I whispered. Maria glanced toward the dining room, then moved closer. "Yes, Mrs. Lisa has been lying to everyone. She has another man." "Another man?" "His name is Richard Sterling. A businessman, very rich. I have seen him come when Mr. Jake is away on business." Maria's voice dropped. "But it is not just romance. They are planning something together." My stomach dropped. "What kind of planning?" "I heard them talking 3 weeks ago. Mr. Sterling wants to buy restaurant chains. Mrs. Lisa told him that soon she would control your BBQ restaurants, and he could buy them for a very good price." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Lisa wasn't just helping Jake steal my work, she was planning to sell it to her lover and disappear. "Jake doesn't know?" Maria shook her head sadly. "No, sir. Mr. Jake thinks Mrs. Lisa loves him. He thinks they will run restaurants together after you cannot make decisions. But Mrs. Lisa laughs about him to Mr. Sterling. She calls him weak, stupid. Jake was destroying his father for a woman planning to betray him too." "How do you know this?" "I clean their bedroom. Sometimes Mrs. Lisa forgets I am there when she talks on phone. And twice I have seen Mr. Sterling's car pick her up, a black Bentley." "Do you have proof?" Maria hesitated, then nodded. "Mrs. Lisa keeps papers in her dresser. Letters from Mr. Sterling, bank information. I took pictures with my phone." She pulled out an old smartphone, scrolling through photos. The images were grainy but clear. Bank statements showing large transfers, handwritten notes discussing restaurant acquisition, and one photo that made my blood boil. Lisa and a distinguished man in intimate embrace. "This is evidence of everything," Maria said. "The affair, the plan to sell your restaurants, bank account numbers." "Maria, you could get in serious trouble." "I know, but Mrs. Dorothy made me promise to protect you. And Mr. Jake, even though he is doing this terrible thing, he is still your son. He deserves to know the truth about his wife." From the dining room, Lisa's voice. "Edward's been gone awfully long. Should we check on him?" "We need to act fast," I whispered. "Can you send those photos to my phone?" "Yes, but what will you do?" I'm going to save my son from the biggest mistake of his life. Then I'm going to make sure Lisa and Jake face consequences. Maria quickly sent the photos. As I looked at evidence of Lisa's betrayal, I realized Jake wasn't just my enemy. He was also a victim of the woman he trusted most. Mr. Harper, Maria whispered urgently, they will want you to sign papers tonight. You must find a way to leave. Get help. Not yet, I said grimly. First, I'm going to show Jake exactly who he married. Then we'll see if there's any of my son left worth saving. The sound of chairs scraping told me time was running out. The final confrontation was about to begin, but now I had ammunition Jake never expected. His wife's betrayal might be the key to saving us both. We need to leave now, I whispered to Maria in the kitchen. Before they realize I know everything. Maria nodded, quickly drying her hands. I can drive you to the police station. My car is parked behind the house. What about you? They'll know you helped me. I will be fine. Mrs. Dorothy would want me to protect you. We moved quietly toward the back door, but the sound of footsteps in the hallway made us freeze. Jake's voice carried from the dining room, sharp with suspicion. Dad's been disappearing all evening. Something's not right. Lisa's voice was equally tense. Maybe he's getting suspicious. We should give him the cranberry sauce now, before he gets any more paranoid. Where is he? Jake demanded. I heard chairs scraping, footsteps moving toward the kitchen. Maria's eyes went wide with panic. Mr. Harper, go. Out the back door. Now. But it was too late. Jake appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face dark with suspicion. Behind him, Lisa's expression was cold and calculating. Dad, what are you doing back here again? Jake's voice carried a dangerous edge I'd never heard before. Just getting some water, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. With the help? Lisa's eyes narrowed as she looked at Maria. Maria, you can go home now. We don't need you anymore tonight. Actually, I said, straightening my shoulders, I think we all need to have an honest conversation. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Jake and Lisa exchanged a quick glance, the kind of look that passes between conspirators when they realize their plan is falling apart. About what, Dad? Jake asked, but his voice was tight with barely controlled panic. About the cranberry sauce. About the plant extract. About your plan to turn me into a vegetable so you can steal everything I've built. Lisa's composure cracked first. You paranoid old fool. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I pulled out my phone, showing them Maria's photos. Then explain these bank transfers to Richard Sterling. Explain your plan to sell my restaurants after you've destroyed my mind. Jake's face went white, but not with shock, with fury at being caught. How did you get those? Does it matter? What matters is that I know the truth. Both of you have been planning this for months. Dad, you don't understand, Jake started, but I cut him off. I understand perfectly. My son and his wife decided that patience was too hard, that waiting for me to die naturally would take too long, so you decided to speed things up. Lisa stepped forward, her mask completely gone now. You should have just eaten the damn cranberry sauce and signed the papers. This would have been so much easier. Easier than what? Murder? You wouldn't have died, Jake snapped, his true nature finally showing. You would have been taken care of. We would have made sure you were comfortable. Comfortable as a vegetable while you spent my money and sold my life's work? Marcus appeared in the doorway, briefcase in hand, having heard the shouting. His face went pale as he took in the scene. What's happening here? Marcus, I said firmly, you need to choose a side. Right now. Are you going to help them destroy me, or are you going to do what's right? Marcus looked at his briefcase, then at Jake and Lisa's furious faces. Finally, his shoulders sagged with what looked like relief. I'm calling the police, he said, pulling out his phone. This has gone too far. I won't be part of attempted murder. Marcus, you signed a confidentiality agreement, Lisa snarled. I don't care about the money anymore, Marcus replied, already dialing. My father would be ashamed of me for even considering this. Jake lunged toward Marcus, trying to grab his phone, but Maria stepped between them with surprising courage. No, Maria said firmly. Enough lies, enough poison. Mr. Harper is a good man, and this ends now. You stupid woman, Jake shouted. Do you have any idea what you've cost us? The sound of sirens in the distance told me we'd won. Their plan had crumbled. Marcus had chosen justice, and the truth was finally coming to light. My son had chosen greed over love, but at least now I knew where I stood. The sirens were getting closer, but Jake wasn't giving up. Even with his plan exposed and the police on their way, he pulled out his phone with desperate fury. "If we're going down," he snarled at me, "we're taking you with us." His fingers flew across the screen, sending messages with manic intensity. Lisa grabbed her own phone, making rapid calls, even as Marcus tried to stop them. "Richard, it's me," Lisa spoke quickly into her phone. "Execute the backup plan now. All of it." "Jake, put the phone down," I said, but he was already beyond reason. "You think you've won, Dad? You have no idea what we prepared for this." His laugh was bitter and unhinged. "We've been planning this for months. Did you really think we didn't have a contingency?" Within minutes, even before the police arrived, my phone started buzzing with notifications. News alerts, social media mentions, text messages from suppliers and employees. Jake and Lisa had activated something they'd prepared in advance. A coordinated attack on everything I'd built. The police burst through the front door just as Jake hit send on his final message. "It's done," he said with savage satisfaction as the officers cuffed him. "Even if you destroy us, we've destroyed you first." Lisa smiled coldly as they read her rights. "Enjoy your victory, Edward. It'll be short-lived." After they were taken away and the police finished their initial questioning, I finally looked at my phone. The notifications were overwhelming. Maria sat beside me as I scrolled through the nightmare they'd unleashed. Harper's BBQ under investigation for food safety violations, posted on every local news website simultaneously. Fake Yelp reviews claiming food poisoning, all posted within the same hour, all from accounts created months ago but dormant until tonight. Anonymous tips to the health department about unsafe practices at all 7 locations. Social media posts from fake employee accounts describing a culture of negligence that never existed. "They planned this," I said, my voice hollow. "They knew if their main plan failed, they'd try to destroy my reputation instead." Maria's face was grim as she read over my shoulder. "Mr. Harper, look at this one." She showed me a news article quoting former employees who claimed I'd been cutting corners on food safety for years. The quotes were detailed, convincing, and completely fabricated. My phone rang. It was the manager of my downtown location. "Mr. Harper, I don't know what's happening, but we've had 3 customers cancel their catering orders in the last hour. They're saying they heard about health violations on the news." I hung up and immediately called my other locations. The story was the same everywhere: customers canceling, employees confused and worried, suppliers asking questions I couldn't answer fast enough. "They're destroying 40 years of reputation in one night," I said, feeling older than I ever had before. "But it's all lies," Maria said fiercely. "People will see that." "Will they? By the time the truth comes out, how many customers will I have lost? How many employees will quit? How much damage will be done?" I looked around the living room where Dorothy and I had planned every expansion of our business, where we'd celebrated every success. Jake and Lisa might be in jail, but they were still winning. "No," I said, standing up with renewed determination. "I didn't survive their poison just to let their lies kill me instead." "What will you do?" "Fight back. They want to play dirty? Fine. But I've got something they don't, the truth, and 40 years of real relationships with real people who know who I am." I picked up my phone and started making calls. If Jake and Lisa wanted a war, they'd get one. But this time, I was fighting on my own terms. The battle for my life's work was just beginning. The next morning, I sat in my kitchen surrounded by 40 years of documentation: health inspection reports, employee records, customer testimonials, financial statements, everything that proved the truth about Harper's BBQ. Maria had arrived at dawn with coffee and determination. "Where do we start, Mr. Harper?" "With facts," I said, spreading out the health department records. Every inspection for the past 10 years. Perfect scores across all locations. My phone buzzed constantly, reporters wanting statements, employees asking questions, customers demanding answers. But I ignored them all. I had work to do. Marcus arrived at 10, looking haggard but resolute. "Mr. Harper, I've been up all night documenting everything Jake and Lisa asked me to prepare. Every forged document, every illegal instruction. It's all here." He set down a thick folder. "I also traced the source of those fake news stories. They hired a reputation management company 3 months ago, the same firm that specializes in corporate smear campaigns." "Can we prove it?" "I have the contracts, the payment records, even email correspondence. They paid $50,000 for a crisis response package that included fake reviews, planted news stories, and coordinated social media attacks." Maria looked up from the laptop where she'd been compiling customer testimonials. "Mr. Harper, look at this. Your customers are fighting back on their own." She showed me the screen. Real customers were posting their own reviews, sharing photos from family celebrations at my restaurants, defending the reputation Jake and Lisa were trying to destroy. 40 years of good food and honest service, one review read. "I don't believe a word of these fake accusations. The Harper family has fed my family for 2 generations." My eyes stung reading the support from people I'd served for decades. "We need to go public," I said. "Hold a press conference, show the evidence, tell the truth." "I can arrange that," Marcus said. "But we also need to hit them where it hurts. I'm recommending we file criminal charges for attempted murder, fraud, and defamation, and civil suits for damages to your business." "How long will that take?" "The criminal case is already moving forward based on the poisoning attempt. But the defamation case? We could have preliminary hearings within 2 weeks if we push hard." I looked at Dorothy's photo on the counter. She'd always believed that honesty would win in the end, but she'd also taught me that sometimes you had to fight for what was right. "Do it all," I said. "Criminal charges, civil suits, press conference. I want everyone to know the truth." Over the next week, we worked 18-hour days. Marcus filed motions and prepared legal briefs. Maria helped me organize evidence and coordinate with employees. We reached out to every customer, every supplier, every business partner who'd known me for decades. The health department conducted surprise inspections of all 7 restaurants, perfect scores across the board. The fake reviewers were exposed when their IP addresses traced back to the reputation management company. The planted news stories fell apart under scrutiny. Slowly, the truth began to emerge. Real journalists started investigating the smear campaign instead of just reporting it. Customer support grew stronger as people realized they'd been manipulated. But Jake and Lisa weren't done fighting. Even from jail, they continued to spread lies through their lawyers and remaining allies. They painted me as a vindictive old man trying to destroy his own son out of spite. "Mr. Harper," Marcus said on the morning of the preliminary hearing, "are you ready for this? They're going to try to make you look like the villain." I adjusted my tie, the same one I'd worn to Dorothy's funeral, to Jake's wedding, to every important moment of my life. Let them try. I have something they don't. "What's that?" "The truth. And 40 years of people who know who I really am." As we walked into the courthouse, I saw familiar faces in the gallery. Restaurant employees, longtime customers, business partners, all there to support me. Maria sat in the front row, wearing her best dress and a determined expression. The battle for my reputation was about to be decided by a jury of my peers. Jake and Lisa had started this war, but I was going to finish it. The courtroom was packed as Judge Martinez called the session to order. Jake and Lisa sat at the defendant's table, but they couldn't look at each other. The truth about Lisa's affair with Richard Sterling had finally reached Jake during pretrial. Marcus presented our case methodically, health inspection records spanning decades, employee testimonials, customer loyalty, the forged documents. Most damning, the contracts with the reputation management company paid for months before Thanksgiving. "The defendants didn't just attempt to poison Mr. Harper," Marcus told the jury. "They orchestrated a campaign to destroy his life's work when their primary plan failed." Lisa's lawyer painted her as Jake's victim, but evidence was overwhelming. Bank transfers to Richard Sterling, recorded calls discussing selling my restaurants, love letters detailing their escape plan. When Jake finally understood Lisa's betrayal, he broke down on the witness stand. "She told me she loved me," he sobbed, looking at me for the first time in months. "She said we were building a future together. I thought we were saving the family business." "By poisoning your father?" the prosecutor asked. Jake's voice cracked. "She convinced me you were getting senile, that you'd lose everything anyway. She said this way, it would stay in the family." "Whose idea was the plant extract?" "Hers. All of it. The poison, fake documents, smear campaign. I went along because I thought she loved me." Lisa remained stone cold throughout Jake's testimony. No remorse, just calculation about minimizing her sentence. The jury deliberated 3 hours. On charges of attempted poisoning and conspiracy to commit fraud, we find both defendants guilty. Lisa received 8 years. Jake, whose cooperation and remorse earned leniency, got 4 years with parole possibility in 2. As they were led away, Jake turned back. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." I nodded but said nothing. Some wounds needed time. Outside, I kept my statement brief. Justice has been served. My restaurants will continue serving the community as they have for 40 years. Maria walked beside me, proud and relieved. Mrs. Dorothy would be so proud. Would she? Dorothy wouldn't have wanted me sending our son to prison. She would have wanted you to protect yourself and the truth. That's what you did. 6 months later, Harper's BBQ was thriving. The community had rallied around me, and trial publicity brought new customers who admired how I'd fought back. But success felt hollow without family to share it. I was closing the downtown location when I found an envelope under the door. Jake's handwriting, shaky but readable. Dad, I know I have no right to ask forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But sitting in this cell, I finally understand what I threw away. Not just money or business, but the love of the best man I ever knew. I don't expect you to write back. I just needed you to know that I remember who you really are now, and I'm ashamed of who I became. Your son, Jake. I sat in my truck, reading the letter 3 times. Dorothy's voice seemed to whisper, "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Thomas. It means choosing love over hate." I folded the letter carefully, putting it in my wallet next to her picture. Forgiveness would take time. Trust would take longer. But maybe there was still a son worth saving underneath all that pain and regret. I drove home through Dallas streets, past restaurants we'd built together, toward a future that was mine to write. The story wasn't over yet. Some endings are just new beginnings in disguise. As I pulled into my driveway, I looked up at the stars Dorothy used to point out on clear nights. Tomorrow I might write Jake back. Or maybe next week. Or maybe next year. But someday, when the time was right, I would try. Because that's what fathers do. We never stop hoping our children can find their way home. This betrayal story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, when those closest to us turn away, God has a plan for our protection and redemption. Thomas Harper's journey teaches us that family bonds, while precious, should never blind us to truth and justice. Like many grandpa stories that have touched hearts across generations, this tale shows us that wisdom comes not just from age, but from the courage to stand up for what's right. When Thomas discovered his son's betrayal, he could have chosen bitterness and revenge. Instead, he chose the harder path, seeking justice while keeping his heart open to forgiveness. God works through unexpected angels like Maria, who risked everything to protect an innocent man. He also works through our trials, transforming betrayal stories into testimonies of strength and resilience. Even when Jake and Lisa's deception threatened to destroy everything Thomas had built, divine providence provided the evidence and allies needed for truth to prevail. The most powerful grandpa stories often end, not with perfect reconciliation, but with hope for healing. Thomas's decision to consider forgiving Jake reflects a Christ-like love that doesn't excuse sin but offers the possibility of redemption. God's grace allows us to love the person while condemning the action, to seek justice while leaving room for mercy. In our own lives, we may face betrayal from those we trust most. But like Thomas, we must remember that our worth isn't determined by others' actions toward us, but by God's unchanging love for us. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't getting everything we want, but maintaining our integrity while others lose theirs. True strength lies not in revenge, but in the wisdom to protect ourselves while keeping our hearts soft enough to love again when the time is right. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you experienced similar challenges with family trust? Share this story with someone who might need to hear about the power of standing up for truth while keeping hope alive for healing.